Hi folks, and welcome back to another video. In this one, I just wanted to talk about Warhammer Underworlds Embergard. So I've always been a fan of Warhammer Underworlds, and I played the Shadespire version back in the day, and it was great fun. I really enjoyed the game. It just had one of those awful cycles of card games that meant that it was very hard to keep up with everything, and eventually got to the point where it was just too overwhelming, and I didn't bother carrying on and picking up any more of the additional miniatures. So when they said that a new edition of the game was coming out, I thought I would definitely get involved with it because everything I'd heard about it just seemed like it was great. And so I've already played a couple of different games of Warhammer Underworlds. In fact, we played, I think it was 6 in the course of one afternoon and had an absolute blast with the game. So I thought I'd dive into the core box and sort of talk a little bit about it and sort of why I think it's great. So for those who aren't aware, the new core box is essentially going to be the starting point that everybody needs for playing the game in the new edition. It doesn't look like the core box is going to be updated anytime soon. So once you get this, you're going to have that really great entry point into Warhammer Underworlds and what it has to offer. You get a full new board, which isn't 2 anymore, it's just the 1, although it comes double-sided. I'm not going to open it here on camera, but you can have a look at it there. We are going to talk a little bit more about the rules in general and stuff like that in a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of take you through what actually comes in the set, although of course I've got a few other bits and pieces mixed in here as well. So you get your kind of like cheat sheet, which is a good way for you to get quick started in the game, or quick started if you're thinking about things from a Skaven point of view, I suppose. So yes, you've got that you can get stuck into. You also get 4 full decks, so you see I've sort of packaged everything up. So these are Rivals decks, and each of the Rivals decks gives you an idea of kind of like how they play thematically, as well as a breakdown of the different cards you get in each of them. And then you essentially get a full-on set of the objective cards and the power cards in here. And there's also a list on here, so it tells you what actually comes in the set, which is a nice little bonus if you get things mixed up like I've done in the past. But essentially you pick this up and this is a ready-to-play deck out of the gate, which is really fantastic. And because they're generous, they've not only produced 1 deck in here, but they've got 4. So you have the Emberstone Sentinels, which is that one there. We have the Blazing Assault deck, which is that one there. We have the Pillage and Plunder deck. And all of these have a distinct theme and feel to them, so they'll be particularly good once you start to do a little bit of testing and practicing. And then last but not least, we have the Countdown to Cataclysm deck there as well. You also get a new set of the dice. They have taken out the spell dice, so they don't exist anymore, but this gives you a bunch of your sort of standard dice. But if you've got any of the other dice from previous box games of Warhammer Underworlds, they are all very useful, so you've got that too. You also have all the tokens you need, which I have separated out into baggies, as you can see here. And then last but not least, you also have your cheat sheet cards. So you've got your roll-off one and setting up, as well as your example. Oh, there you go. Roll-off one and setting up, alongside the turns in the battle round. You also have your little successes and combat sequence set, the core abilities one there, and also the setup for the game, which comes across the 2 boards and the way that works. So that's very handy there. A few other bits and pieces obviously I want to share with you guys. So the 2 warbands that you get in the box are the Emberwatch. Here are these guys here. So that's what they look like normally, and that's their war scroll on the back, which tells you their special abilities and things and how they inspire. And then you also have Zikit's Tunnel Pack, which is that one there, which is very nice as well. So you've got those 2. And then, of course, you get the cards for them. So if I separate those, got the card for Farasa, Uric, and Ardorn, which are your Emberwatch. And then you have Zikit, Ritak, Kritatok, Tick Tick, and Nitch, who are your Skaven. You'll see that I've also got a few other different decks in the box here as well. So that's my friend Gloomscapite one that he needs to take off me at some point. But I've got the rules there for the Fast Riders and how they work alongside their various Crusader bits and bobs. And then I've got all the different cards here for them. So I've got the Fast Rider gang that I've just basically printed off and stuck into card sleeves. Just put them back to back. And then I've also got my Fire Slayers there as well. who are from an older edition of the game. There are a lot of these cards online for you to just download and print off. So if you've got a decent printer, or you've got a friend who's got a decent printer, you can go and find all the rules for playing with these warbands that aren't currently in the full suite online. So nothing is essentially out of bounds, really. Everything is available for you to play, apart from a certain few warbands which are not essentially tournament legal. Everything else is pretty much up for grabs if you're just playing casually. So just get printing and away you go. So yeah, that's some good stuff there. These two decks, they don't come in the starter box. These are just additional ones. So these are a couple more of the decks that were released over the last couple of months. But again, these are Rivals decks. So essentially you get these and that is all you need to start playing with them. You just break up these decks, shuffle them up, and you can start playing. The Rivals format is absolutely fantastic, and for somebody who is only ever really going to be playing this game casually, I think it's a really great way to get involved. Although I will say that the folks at Games Workshop tend to run very, very good sort of Rivals-style tournaments and also Nemesis tournaments at Warhammer World. So if you are interested, make sure to go and check those out. I'm going to have some links down below, actually, after this for you to go and check out some a different channel that I think is well worth having a look at, which is called the Agents of Sigmar. They do very, very good Warhammer Underworlds coverage, and they will explain things a whole lot better than I will when it comes to the game. So definitely go and check those guys out and see what they have to say. But yeah, just wanted to take you through the rulebook as well for Warhammer Underworlds and just give you an idea of it. One of the things that I was really drawn to was actually the lore stuff. There's not a lot of it at the back, but it was really interesting reading about the lore of Embergard and kind of like how it fits into the narrative of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So Embergard was a city that has always been on the edge of ruin. It was conquered multiple times. And deep beneath the city, there are all these mines and warrens and things that have exposed the Emberstone that lies beneath. And everyone is after it, effectively. And so you've got all these people going down to the mines now, trying to find all the Emberstone that they can, in order to impress their lords or craft weapons and all that kind of thing, especially if you looked at the Path to Glory set that we looked at a couple of days ago. This kind of all makes sense of that in that sense. But it was a really nice little bit of background on both the Ember Watch and sort of how they work alongside the likes of the Stormcast Eternals and also Zikit's Tunnel Pack. So if you're somebody who is interested in the lore and the background of Age of Sigmar, there is enough in here to get you sort of interested in the idea of why people are there and what they're doing. So it's very, very good in that sense, which is always nice. Back to the rules, though, just a few kind of like key things that I wanted to sort of talk about, which is really nice. So one of the nice things about it is that straight away, obviously, you've got those rival decks, which are very easy for you to build and play with. Well, you don't even have to build anything. You just shuffle them and away you go. But if you're looking to do some actual deck building, then you have the Nemesis format. And with that, you take two Rivals decks. So, well, let's just say, for example, you take these two Rivals decks and then you mash them together and you choose a certain amount of cards from each to make your deck. But essentially, somebody knows I've taken X and Y, and this is produced Z, effectively. So again, it's a much simpler way of deck building than it has been in the past, which is always nice to see with a card game that you're trying to get people excited about. Generally, the flow of the game all works fairly similar to what you'd expect. You have a limited amount of turns in order to do as much as you can and gain as many victory points as you can. What will generally happen on a turn is that you will take an action, then it'll switch over to the other player, and they will take an action. You'll go back and forth until you've used your 4 actions. And then either through the course of that turn or during that turn, you'll score objectives, and they will get you glory, as you can see on the bottom of the cards. The glory can then be used to pay for things like upgrades and stuff on your characters. But in most cases, you'll also be using these cards to do what the actions on them. So these will things like Savage Blow will do X or Y depending on a certain condition. And one of the things I really like about what they've done with this is that they've done it in such a way where glory now is, I wouldn't say easier to come by, but the method in which you score it is slightly easier to compute. And by extension, the use of upgrades has been changed so that it's a little bit more like a pool system than it is you've bought this and now you're stuck with X or Y, which I think is quite nice. So if one person dies, you've not like locked yourself out of a whole bunch of upgrades because they died and took all the upgrades with them, which could have happened with the old edition of the game. I also like that all the wording on the cards has been updated and changed, so it's a lot easier to kind of understand when something does something. The only thing I would say is that it can be a little bit of a sort of hard thing to get your head around, is that you take an action and then you move into a power step where you go back and forth in the power step and then it switches to the other player. And you have to kind of remind yourself, is it my power step or their power step? But that's just something that you'll get used to as you play more games. And I've found that by the end of our 6 games we played over the course of an evening, we did eventually get to that, which was quite good. They have changed up how warbands work as well, so there are no more themed decks like there were in previous edition, but instead you have the war scroll, which kind of gives you that theme. So in the case of the Ember Watch, they're very much about sort of like vanguarding and rushing forward and doing lots of damage, whereas the Skaven are a bit more tricksy and all that kind of stuff. They still have the Inspire mechanic in the game, but the Inspire mechanic works across the entire of the warband rather than it just being limited to the Inspire mechanic telling you how one character works and then it's different on the second one and all that kind of thing, which is quite nice. Most of these abilities are normally one use per game, although there are some exceptions to that. There's also a full-on warband ability there attached to that too, but again, just simplifying and streamlining that process. The fighter cards have also been tweaked and changed as well. They've just broken things down so it's a lot easier for you to understand. You have your move, your save, your health, your bounty characteristic, which is how much they're worth if they get killed. And then you also have the weapons and how they work, and they're split down between kind of like ranged and melee weapons based on the distance in which you can use them. And then, of course, you'll have your damage that you're looking for on the dice and how that all works. Some rival decks will work better with some decks than others, although essentially there is no reason why you can't use any deck with any warband effectively. Another thing that I think they've done a really nice job on is that they have streamlined a lot of the wording and the complication to the game so that it just flows a lot easier. There were a couple of times when I was playing previous editions of the game where it was sort of like, so I do this and then this happens, but then how does this interact with this and this? And it feels like throughout all of the cards, they've really done a good job of kind of like nailing that down and making it a lot easier to get your head around, which is something that's quite important, I think, in a card game. Again, if you're trying to introduce people to a quicker format, an interesting format that effectively serves as an intro for the wider world of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And again, it only takes place over the course of, 3 battle rounds. So you've got a lot of choices to make in not a lot of time. And so you don't want to make it even heavier for people with all the kind of additional wording that used to exist on all the cards and that kind of stuff. And having everything so it's now tied to the different rivals decks just makes it a lot easier for you to get your head around. I'm thinking about weapon abilities and all that kind of thing is still there, although a lot of them now trigger on criticals. One of the nice things they've done as well is that criticals don't just essentially become the be-all and end-all of any roll. Now they just act as another success, but they trigger these critical weapon abilities. So you can't just win by rolling criticals all the time now. You actually have to, hope that the dice fall in your favour in a lot more different ways, which is good. Creatures still die, characters still die very quickly in the game, so it's not like it's one of those games where you're going to be you've got to be shy. Running forward and doing as much as you can with what you have available to you is just a great way of doing things. I will say one of the nice things the other nice things they added into the game was the idea of being able to like cycle your hand of cards. So rather than being what they call bricked, where you were just stuck with a hand of cards that you couldn't do anything with, you can now decide on your turn to use an action to get rid of as many cards as you like across both of your both objective and power cards, and then redraw those cards. So it might lose you a turn, but it means that you're not stuck with a bunch of things that you can't use, which is very, very handy. And all in all, I think they've done a really nice job of kind of making the game fairly quick and accessible for a lot of people. As you can see, there's a sort of breakdown of how Nemesis deck building works there as well. Well, I did have to ask a few questions online about kind of how a few things worked, just essentially by checking things like Reddit and stuff like that. But it wasn't really that complicated in the grand scheme of things. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, I played with, as you'll have seen, on older Warband, which was the Fire Striders, alongside the Fire Slayers as well, the Chosen Axes. But then I also played a couple of games as both the Ember Watch and Zicket's Tunnel Pack from this set as well. So it was great fun sort of playing the game and getting an idea of how everything worked tactically. And it ended up being 3-3 in the end, so we drew by the end of it all, which was quite a fun little twist, I suppose, at the end of it. The other thing I wanted to do was just kind of show you a few of my models as well. So here are my Stormcast Eternals. That's Ardorn there. And I did these. I was going to do these guys gold, but I went for the Hamilcar Bear Eaters, amethyst-clad warriors. I can't remember their name, unfortunately, now, which is a real pain in the bum, but I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments. But I really enjoyed doing them in that purple armor. That is done with a contrast paint, but then the rest of it is all done with sort of traditional paints, mainly because I couldn't get the blue to look quite as good, but I think I've actually managed to pull it off with those guys. So there's Ardorn there, leading the way alongside his followers. So those are my Stormcast. And what's quite nice about the Warhammer Underworlds range as well is that I think there's, because you're only, if you're playing a kind of beefy warband, you're only really playing with 3 models. So actually getting these guys ready for the tabletop was stupidly easy and wasn't really a chore, to be honest. And if you're somebody who's allergic to painting lots of armies and having a pile of grey, this is a great game for you to get stuck into, because you can have some stuff ready for the tabletop without having to do much at all, to be honest. There's no reason why you have to paint these guys either. This is Zicket's Tunnel Packs, by the way, so that's Zicket. These guys were all actually painted more with contrast paints, because I think it works better on these guys who don't have as much, as many large sort of flat panels as the Stormcast Eternals. All of the miniatures all come with in like their own plastic color. So, for example, the Stormcast come in blue, and Zicket comes in green. So you don't actually have to paint your warband if you don't want to. You can just have them in the bare plastic and just use that as your warband. It's certainly a lot easier to transport and get stuck into more games if you don't paint them, I suppose. So yeah, there's Zicket and the rest of his tunnel pack. Just bring them in here as well. Show these guys off. Hopefully you can see these guys and they're not too far away. Seems okay on my monitor that I'm watching. And I really enjoyed painting up these and having a little bit more fun with them, and getting stuck into painting up more Warhammer Underworlds bits and pieces. As I said previously, I think one of the nice things about Warhammer Underworlds is that because you get a snapshot of an entire faction across, from between 3 and 10 models, 8-10 models per side. I think it's a really nice option for those people who want to dive into the Lord of the Rings, who want to dive into the Mortal Realms and Warhammer Age of Sigmar without committing to an entire army, which is, great for those people who want to get invested in the hobby, but don't necessarily have the time to do that as well. Just to kind of show you some of my older stuff, I suppose. Here we go. I thought I'd bring out some of my older warbands that I have painted. So this kind of shows you some of the other stuff. So here are the Chosen Axes, done in their kind of classic Fire Slayer colours. And there are so many warbands out there. A lot of them are fairly cheap online because they came out ages and ages ago. And because you don't need the old cards anymore to play them, you can just buy up the sets of miniatures and you're pretty much sorted for warbands without having to buy any of the new stuff that's coming out. Although some of the new stuff is looking rather nice. There is a new Lizardman warband, which is pretty cool, and also a Nurgle one, which is very nice. But if you're somebody who just wants to kind of like play around with some of the older stuff, print off some bits and pieces, and just have a bit of fun with the core rules of the game and just the basic core set, there's nothing to stop you having a lot of fun for not a lot of money, which is something you can't necessarily say about a lot of other Games Workshop games out there. But yeah, that's just my thoughts and sort of like an overview of what I think of Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Underworlds, the new core game, which is Embergard. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you're a fan of Warhammer Underworlds, I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you've never played it before, do you have any questions? I'll endeavour to answer those as best I can. And as I said at the beginning, I'm going to have a link down below to the Agents of Sigmar channel, because those guys do an absolutely fantastic job on keeping the community up to date with all the things that are new and they'll do a better job of explaining the game and getting you excited about it than I ever will. But because I was excited about the game and enjoying it, I thought I would definitely share my thoughts with you guys anyway. So yeah, that was a little bit of a look through the Warhammer Underworlds Embergard core set, my thoughts on the rules and what they've changed over the course of the last couple of editions. And if you want to get down into the comments and like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, please do so. It'd be absolutely fantastic. There's also a Ko-fi link down there as well if you'd be interested in donating to help me continue with my hobby goodness. But the most important thing is getting involved in the comments and sharing your thoughts, because I like hearing what you have to say. So yes, that was Warhammer Underworlds and a little bit of a flick through the new edition box set and my thoughts on it. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will stop my waffling now and vanish into the mines. Thank you very much, folks, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye for now.